quite blankly that, look, I have been arrested, I'm in prison. Why is it that others have not, particularly lawyers? He's asking these questions, and he says it very clearly, very profoundly. Subsequent to that, of course, the president of SWAPO calls a press conference, which we hope would shed light on this matter, but also not just to shed light, but to tell the nation as to some of the actions that they will undertake to address this issue. He doesn't do it. And you retreat and you start to wonder, where exactly is it that SWAPO wants to take this country? What is it that SWAPO really wants to make of this country at the end of the day? Because what it says in its documents, what SWAPO says in its manifesto, upon which they are voted for, is entirely contradicted by its conduct, particularly at a time when strong leadership is required, that SWAPO retreats to the old denialism. And that denialism is precisely why today still we haven't been able to resolve the question of Lubango. We haven't been able to resolve the Kufuor-TF issues. We haven't been able to resolve many other important things, precisely because the strategic posture that SWAPO takes is one of denying, of anger, of belittling those that pose questions. And so this morning we are reading that a journalist was assaulted. Jemima Beekers was assaulted. She's worried about her life. But at the same time, in the recent past, Hengari and others were saying, we must commend the president for a free press, free media, no journalist arrested. But while he was present at that event where a journalist, and a woman for that matter, was mistreated, he merely says, you like to exaggerate things. Now, if she was beaten up, was it also going to be an exaggeration? If something had happened to her life, was it not going to be an exaggeration? So we have these concerns. Now, before I start to speak in substance to what we have come for here today, one would like to pay tribute and wish strength to the family of Zinzi Mandela, the South African ambassador to Denmark, who passed on. She has been a staunch Pan-Africanist, a strong revolutionary, a woman who at a young age began to speak out her mind as her father was imprisoned, and remained loyal to the cause of fighting for the genuine liberation of our black people. She leaves behind a very strong and admirable legacy of honesty, of integrity, and she leaves behind a legacy that many young women across the continent and indeed across the globe can and should emulate. One of hard work, one of strength of character, one of conviction, and one of service to the people that she dearly loves. So we wish the family, as they are gathering, all the best and all the strength, and we wish to appreciate her lifelong contributions to fighting for the recognition of women, the equality of women, the freedom for all who live in South Africa, indeed around the world. May her soul rest in peace. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have witnessed yesterday the arrogance and the impotence of SWAPO party to transform society. In fact, one can today say that SWAPO and its actions have over the past 30 years deformed Namibian society, and that they today are faced with a very strong young constituency that is awakened and has a different view in respect of the approach of SWAPO to politics, the approach of SWAPO to the questions that require clear answers for national reconciliation, nation building, state building, and for future development. So I would directly say the following. President Geingob yesterday said that this and the inability to account as they should. Is it correct for the president of SWAPO, who also is in government, to suggest that it is sufficient for SWAPO to be left alone to do its own introspection, while the resources that could have benefited a lot of projects across the country have been given to a political party for its own political efforts? Now we know, firstly, that in terms of the Electoral Act, all donations both from within and from outside the country must be disclosed to the ECN. Has that been done to the ECN? Does the ECN know where SWAPO got money from, how much it got from whoever gave them? And is it correct for SWAPO, through its president Geingob, to suggest that there is a difference between SWAPO members and SWAPO party? He seems to suggest that individuals received monies and not SWAPO party. This is a very strange approach. If people are members of SWAPO party and in a political campaign they are fighting for their party to win votes, is SWAPO then somewhere else and something artificial? If SWAPO is not its membership, what is SWAPO? Who is SWAPO? And where is SWAPO then? The distinction that they want to make and want Namibians to believe that it is okay for SWAPO members to receive monies as long as it is not SWAPO party is a fake one. It's a misleading one. It's a toxic one. It is a very rotten approach to reality itself. It is to suggest that SWAPO is some sort of a different structure, alienated from its members, alienated from its leaders, and is something different with a different life that exists in another reality. So, we have also seen that the cracks within SWAPO are deepening. Nas Gideon Angula, a failed Prime Minister, a failed Minister of Defense, a failed Minister of Education, has seemingly suggested that SWAPO government must resign to save SWAPO. Does he want us to believe that there is a different SWAPO other than that of Geingob, that when they resign will rise up suddenly and rescue this country? Does he also want us to believe that some of them who are in Team SWAPO are as clean as an unborn child, that they have never known about instances of corruption, that they have never known about the challenges of corruption that have grown bigger and bigger while they too were in the executive arm of the state? Why is it that now Zangula behaves as if he has no knowledge, has no awareness of the strength of corruption that has been growing in this country for the past 30 years? The same also with Pendukeni Itana, where she seems to be saying that SWAPO has been hijacked by money. Does the former Secretary General of SWAPO want the people of this country to believe that upon her departing from that position and from active politics, that money suddenly became the problem? Is it not under their tutelage that monies were received from countries outside this republic? Donations were given by instances outside this country. Has Etana and Nahas forgotten that during their period, there was also an institution called Anti-Corruption Commission, recognizing therefore the need that corruption has grown in this country, that it has become institutional, and that there needs to be a structure to fight the scourge of corruption. The point we are making here is that no leader within SWAPO can claim that today, because they are outside government, that corruption is a problem of those in the government, and those of them that are outside the government have had nothing to do with corruption, that they could have spoken but they did not speak, and that today they want to claim a clean hand to ensure that they can win cheap political points. If at the expense of a problem that is so significant, Etana and Nahas Angula want to use this problem as a means to score internal political points, it is not going to work. They too must do something bigger so that we can see that they are opposed to the scourge of corruption. Why don't they resign? Why don't they resign in protest and show us that they are making a permanent departure from an organization that, according to Etana's words, is hijacked by money? What action is it that they expect or should be expected to take to ensure that Namibians can have trust in their concerns around corruption? Does the resignation, as Nahas wants us to believe, of this current government, according to them, necessarily bring about a new day in this country? Our view is, whether it is the KENCOP team that resigns or whether it is the SWAPO team that comes to power, none of them, as the total SWAPO brand, represent the interest of the people of this country at all. The days are gone when SWAPO was recognized as the sole and authentic representative of the people of Namibia. And from this day on, we will call them for what they are, the Southwest African People's Organization, a party of a country that doesn't exist anymore. They have, just as they have not updated their name, remained in the past of the Southwest Africa we fought to get rid of. We are now in the Republic of Namibia, and we want them to act in terms of the laws of the Republic of Namibia. If we quickly have to look at the laws, there is the Prevention of Organized Crime Act of 2004 that came into force on the 5th of May 2019. This act is meant to introduce measures to combat organized crime, money laundering, and criminal gang activities, as well as to prohibit certain activities related to racketeering activities, and to provide for prohibition of money laundering and for an obligation to report certain information. This law also is meant to criminalize certain activities associated with gangs, to provide for the recovery of the proceeds of unlawful activities, to provide for the forfeiture of assets that have been used to commit an offense or assets that are the proceeds of unlawful activities, and of course to prohibit the smuggling of immigrants and trafficking of persons and so on and so forth. This is the law that we have. In terms of this law, any person that could have reasonably known that there is a criminal activity in an organized fashion should have reported that activity to the police forces. Brings us to the question, did President KENCOP know that his ministers were possibly involved in a criminal and organized activity of looting the state resources, in particular the fishing resources? Did he not know? Does he believe that we should believe that he did not know? As head of state, but also as head of government, our assessment is that the president should reasonably have known the activities of all his ministers, because he approves of those activities. He oversees those activities. Ministers report directly to the president, because unlike in other jurisdictions, the president is not only the head of state, but he is the head of government. All the work that they do is given through the mandate by the president. He should have known that there are criminal activities. It was his responsibility to know that there was looting. He also should reasonably have known, as the leader of SWAPO, the Southwest African People's Organization, that there are criminal activities, that there is organized crime being perpetrated by those in the executive. If he tells us that he didn't know, it means therefore that he is not in control of both the government and of SWAPO party, if he didn't know. But he should have known. And as he should have known, what is it that he did when at the time he began to know about the activities? Or was he himself the person given the instructions for the looting of the fishing sector? Because until now, he has not properly addressed the extent of his involvement. Others were saying that for his campaign to become president of SWAPO, money was needed. They asked for money, according to Al Jazeera. The money was transferred. The money, it is alleged, was used to pay delegates to the SWAPO Congress to elect him. Did he know that delegates were being paid to vote for him? What did he do? When did he know this? Who was part of those that were in charge of fundraising for him and for his campaign? Where is his campaign manager to clarify the receipt of monies, the distribution of monies, and the payment, as alleged, of SWAPO Party Congress delegates to vote for Geingob? This point that we are raising is amplified by what Naz Angula said on Eagle FM, that he lost an election because he couldn't pay people to vote for him. And so there is an internal admission within SWAPO that there was payment made to delegates to vote for a person. That those that did not win did not have the money to pay delegates, and therefore they lost. There is an internal admission by senior leaders within SWAPO that there was money doing rounds to pay people. There are lists of names being circulated as to who received how much. Does President Geingob deny that money was given to those people that are appearing on the list, including in SWAPO WhatsApp groups? Did Shaninkwa also not know of monies that were making the rounds? And if they know, what is it precisely that they're going to do? Should it not be correct for Geingob, if he did not know, that since these allegations are made, that he should initiate an internal investigation to determine who received monies? But even when we are asking these questions, we know that he's not going to do what we are asking. Any president of a party, in particular a party that is in charge of state resources, should be able to be transparent enough and to clear the name of his or her party by doing the thorough investigations necessary to ensure that his or her party comes clean. It is not enough for Mr. Geingob to say that SWAPO has audited reports. Audit reports merely reconcile the numbers that people submit. Audit reports are not forensic in nature. They are reports that compile and structure the finances of a party's activities. Should Geingob not, in respect of his party internally, launch forensic audit so that a clear determination is made regarding how monies were used, who authorized payments, if he doesn't know, and who received how much and for what purpose? Perhaps as part of the campaigns, they were paying Edgar's and Jet Stores and Pep Stores accounts maybe for their people. maybe buying fuel, food, maybe cattle, goats. Some will maybe buying BMWs. Who knows? But the country needs to know. And introspection is not the way to do it. An audit report, forensic audit report, if SWAPO is committed to fighting corruption, is the first step he should take. The second step they must take, in our view, is that they must voluntarily submit each and every financial statement, each and every name of a donor, whether from inside or from outside. They must submit those documents voluntarily to the Anti-Corruption Commission to look at these things, if they are serious about fighting corruption. Submit it to the ACC. Voluntarily sit down with the ACC to go through all of these documents so that the country is able to know who funds SWAPO, how is SWAPO funded, through which resources of the state, who are its political funders, with what interest in and outside this country, and that we are therefore not in a situation where this country is sold to the highest bidder who pays SWAPO's election campaigns, because that is the reality. At the same time, SWAPO must also disclose its funders' names and institutions to the ECN, because clearly they are the party that has the biggest purse and has access to the greatest resources of the state to use those resources in the way that benefits them. Thirdly, ECN itself must demand from SWAPO to account as to the use of the funds. Last year, political parties came together at the ECN, and in the discussions that we've had, we agreed to certain amounts of donations to be made for political campaigns, a limit for donations from inside the country, as well as a limit from donations from outside the country. I speak under correction, but I think political parties agreed that a maximum of 5 million or 4 million must be obtained for any donation from outside the country. If this money from the fish rod saga, as is alleged by Esau, was channeled through a lawyer's firm, and it exceeds that 4 million, SWAPO is itself in breach of agreements that were collectively made by political parties last year. It is in a gross violation if it received more than 4 million from outside, because the presumption is that while the resources are Namibian, the money came from outside. What is the ECN going to do about it? Are they going to act on this? Are they going to request SWAPO to account how they got the money? Are they going to ask lawyers to disclose what their involvement was? We proceed. And state that basically the Southwest African People's Organization has become a criminal organized syndicate. If there were individuals, including Nahas Gideon Angula, who knew that there was money making rounds as a leader of SWAPO, if Nahas knew that there was money making rounds, and if he knew that these monies were sourced from outside, he had the responsibility under what we call POCA, the Prevention of Organized Crime Act, to report the suspicious movement of money into individual hands he had a legal responsibility to report this to the Inspector General of Police. That is what the law requires. If he knew, it seems he knew, but he did not report. We are interested to find out how much Nahas knew about the money from outside doing rounds to pay people, and why did he keep quiet? Why is he keeping quiet and only speaking now? Why did he not speak? Because he was protected under the law, but also required under the law to speak. It seems also that Mr. Geingob does not recognize the detail within the Electoral Act. We should ask the journalists to send a copy of the Act for Mr. Geingob, the Electoral Act, because it is a gross failure on his side. He signs off laws that he did not know that the Electoral Act of 2015 wants disclosure of where you get your money from. Is it that he generally does not know and just signs off laws? Is it perhaps something that we must ascribe to his very advanced age, that he may have forgotten? Because it seems also that in yesterday's press conference, he made a very powerful assertion that he does not believe that the accused persons in custody now are guilty. Is it a question of age that he makes these statements? Is it a question of ignorance? Is it what advisors give him to say? Is it the Attorney General that is not advising the person which laws are applicable to whatever press event or statement he has in respect of the particular question? Is it that he did not know? Or is it that he basically does not regard the laws of the country, that he says the types of things he says? There is a law, Mr. Geingob, the electoral law, that demands from your party to disclose its funders. You have also, secondly, a responsibility under the Prevention of Organized Crime Act, Mr. Geingob, to report any other of your individuals, not just to fire, but to report any other inkling of organized crime in this country to the Inspector General of the Police. Maybe we must highlight and send these provisions to Hengari, so that Hengari can give to the President. Because it's very shocking that a head of state has scant regard for the existing laws. And yet it's the same SWAPO people that will say the rule of law is important in this country. But when it comes to them having to adhere to those laws, they simply say these rules, these laws don't exist. It's a dangerous day in our body politic. Now, I want to make an impassionate plea to Bernard Esau, Saki Edward Shangala, James Hatukulipi and Fiti, and the gang of 6 in prison. In your darkest moments, because of your most unpatriotic deeds, the truth can set you free. The allegations that surround you, Bernard Esau, you, Saki, you, James, are very disheartening for the people of this country. There was trust bestowed upon you. You played with it. You broke the future of so many young people. You broke the trust, the hearts of so many young people. But even in your darkest hour, you can still do the right thing. You can still do the right thing. You can still, for as long as you are alive, do the most patriotic thing for the people of this country and speak the truth. We are available if you want us to visit you in prison to hear your full disclosures. Or if you want to speak to other people, perhaps bishops, church people, so that you set the nation free from the scourge of corruption. Esau, Saki, tell this nation how much the money that was eaten is. Tell us where these monies are, so that the nation is able to get back its money for the sake of our children. Tell us the names of the individuals with whom this whole process of this fish rod saga was facilitated. Call them out. Name them. Set yourself free. Speak the truth. God the merciful will hear you. All that Namibians want from you, Bernard Esau, Saki Shangala, James, and all of you, is to tell us the truth and that you repent from your sins. Your darkest moment can be the strongest light if you know where to call on that light. Speak up. You will never be ministers again. You will never get into politics again. But you can save future generations. You can help us to unbundle the network with which you are doing these things. Be brave. Be courageous. We will not be condemning you, but when you speak the truth, Namibians will embrace you, and you will have set this nation onto a different trajectory of transparency, of honesty, and your children and your families would not need to walk in shame if you speak the truth. Only the truth is the option that you have now. Because SWAPO party yesterday has clearly deserted all of you. SWAPO party, the Southwest African People's Organization, has said to you, Bernard Esau, Saki Shangala, and everybody, that you are on your own. You don't matter to them anymore. Southwest African People's Organization is making you the sacrificial lambs in this whole saga. But the networks are still intact. Be brave. Be honest. Set yourself free with the truth. Applications for bail is not your answer. You know you want to get out of prison. That is not the biggest answer to your challenges. Look at your innermost. Reflect on what you have done. And free yourselves, mind and spirit, from the clutches of this evil pandemic called corruption. You are still young. You can still enjoy productive lives after you have told Namibians what has happened. Take the nation in your confidence. Take us in your confidence, and we will ensure, together with you, that justice is done. That is your patriotic duty to the people of this country. I say I'm speaking to Bernard Esau, to Saki Edward Shangala, to James and to Fiti and all others. Set yourself free. Set yourself free, and you will see how the load of lies, once you offload them, will never be part of your journey. Every person gets a second chance. Fight for your second chance, because SWAPO and the continued lying and fighting that they have projected is not your second chance. It is us, the Namibian people, that will be your second chance. And it is God to whom you will eventually answer that will be your liberator. Seek his face and speak the truth. Call on us, call on bishops and other clergy that you trust. Reveal everything that you know. Reveal it. Don't be shy. Reveal everything you know. And even more things regarding corruption cases in every aspect of the government of this country. Reveal it. Reveal it. Because you know so much, from the oil deals to the oil storage facilities. Reveal it, everything, so that one day we can celebrate and say truth has prevailed and sense has come to town. Of course, it will be important that President Geingob demonstrates support to the ACC by giving it more resources on an urgent basis to deepen its investigation. I also call on the Law Society of Namibia, given the affidavit that was or the sworn testimony that Mr. Olivier gave, as well as the assertions made in the affidavit and in the subsequent court matters that arose in the Q&A cross-examinations last week, that the Law Society of Namibia must also begin to launch an investigation into the trust accounts of Caesar Namanje and all other lawyers that are implicated. There must be investigations. At the same time also, the ACC must extend its investigation to all service providers, musicians, artists of all sorts that were performing at SWAPO events in the last elections. Everybody. Food they bought, cars they fueled, vehicles that they were renting, t-shirts, caps, everything that SWAPO printed or used. Every service provider, from those that provided pens and papers, every one of them must be investigated. Why? Because the nation needs to know, did these service providers receive payment directly from SWAPO, or did they receive payments from law firms? We must know that. Who was paying musicians? We must know from whose account did it come. Because it could be, it seems, that monies may have been from trust accounts of law firms, probably directed to service providers to avoid SWAPO receiving money directly. So the conspiracy thickens, the net broadens, the crime enlarges, the entanglement grows stiffer. And winter is coming for SWAPO. Winter is coming. ACC must intensify its work. Police, Commercial Crimes Unit must intensify its work. And Law Society must intensify its work. What we'll be doing as LPM is to carefully look at what is within our legal remit. For instance, we'll be looking at whether we can lay criminal charges against SWAPO or individuals of SWAPO. We will look at this carefully. We will be consulting legal practitioners carefully so that we actually lay charges, criminal and otherwise, particularly in terms of the POCA, the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. We'll have to see. We will, of course, also, after this press conference, communicate to the Electoral Commission of Namibia to call them to task on their responsibilities regarding the Electoral Act and the protection of that act so that they are able to implement the provisions of that act fully. We would have loved, as a country, to have a major event or two, a public demonstration that would show our rage, our anger, our disgust with the corruption in this country. But because of COVID, we are unable to do so. But we call upon our young people to remain strong and remain united. Once we are united as a country against SWAPO, there is nothing that can stop us from removing SWAPO party from power. We have elections coming. They are going for an introspection. They think maybe they want to involve more young people after the introspection as a way of apparently trying to dissuade other young people from leaving SWAPO. That shouldn't be able to work. The SWAPO brand, the Southwest African People's Organization brand, is the enemy of the people of this country. It is that brand that is destroying the opportunities for young people who are qualified, who cannot get jobs. It is that brand that has made thousands upon thousands of Namibians homeless and landless. It is that brand that is now privatizing state resources and enriching themselves in ways unimagined before. A 1.3 billion in Kazakhstan. That is just one account that was revealed. How many other accounts are lying idle in private bank accounts in countries that you and I would not be thinking about on a daily basis? Who would have thought that they would put money in Kazakhstan? Maybe there are other monies in Mongolia or Tajikistan or God knows who, or Croatia, or wherever. In countries that we find fairly obscure, they may have placed huge resources of this country and the people of this country. We must remain united. The President, Geingob, is not committed to fighting corruption. SWAPO is not committed to fighting corruption. They have benefited from corruption. They have articulated laws to facilitate corruption. They live from corruption. We can never trust a single word that they say in fighting corruption. Never, never. There are others who are politically opportunistic. Who, when things are difficult, never comment and give their views. But they want to be presidents of the country. Some of them are now registering new political parties. But when things are tough, they are not there. Their voices are not heard. They are conspicuous in their absence. But they want to be political office bearers in the country at a difficult time. Some of them that have applied recently to be registered, they have never even condemned corruption of SWAPO. Some of them fought to get back to SWAPO. Some of them, even when they were fired from SWAPO, still proclaimed they are SWAPO. Yet they want to be elected as leaders in this country. Those type of politicians are the ones that are merely looking for a chance to get a chunk from the SWAPO voters to get to power, merely to form a coalition government with SWAPO in our analysis. I want to hear Dr. Itula. What is he saying about these issues? It is not just about going to court. It's about giving an opinion on issues. Where is Dr. Itula? Where is he? Dr. Itula, where are you? Why are you not speaking up? Why are you not speaking up? Or did you speak and I didn't hear you? Leaders must be serious. We need a united front to fight corruption. And to be honest, and I'm speaking from the heart, the Southwest African People's Organization is a waste of time, is a waste of energy. It is nothing. It has become a complete empty shell. That's why they are angry with journalists. That's why they are frustrated with everybody that is asking them questions. And I'm telling you things that you know as Namibians. If in the 4th month of the 2nd term of Mr. Geingob, they are unable to deal with this matter of corruption, how do you think this term of office will end up? We are also calling upon the international community, and we will communicate with them, to sanction individuals not only mentioned in the fish rod saga, but to put economic and travel restrictions on the leadership of SWAPO party. It's important, because we can't have these individuals who are leaders of SWAPO parading as representatives of the people of Namibia and of our needs, speaking to the international community as though they are genuine representatives of our people. We can't have that. We are asking them, the Americans, the European Union, all others, we are asking, and will do so formally in writing, to put travel restrictions on these individuals, but also to put them on lists of corrupt individuals in their individual countries, and to take assets of SWAPO leaders in their countries, freeze those assets until the fish rod issue is resolved. Freeze the assets of these political office bearers, including those in government, ministers and others. Freeze their assets, whether these assets are in the United States, whether these assets are in Kazakhstan, in the European Union. Freeze the assets of these individuals entirely, so that as a country we're able to deal with this matter in a very deliberate and detailed fashion. Because if international pressure is not applied on these persons, they will have free rein to do trading, to take resources, sell them to the highest bidder, and they will continue to live lives largely. While our fishing sector is shedding significant number of jobs, they have brought in European fishermen just last week who were transported with Tunagor buses from Hosea Kutako Airport to come and do fishing, while our own fishermen are being laid off. This is the challenge we have. You can see how they are making the international individuals more important than the local individuals, the citizens that need jobs. That's why you have seen Mr. Geingob saying he needs to have his performance checked, not by Namibians, but by outsiders who have not voted for him. That's just precisely how they are bringing in fishermen from European countries that have not voted for them to come and do fishing, make money, provide for their families, while our own people are being chased away from jobs. They have not also held accountable the former board members of Fishco. They have just let them go. Leon Jooste has not initiated any process, and they have appointed new persons like Mia Gaumap and Melka Mugunda on the board. The former board of directors must account. Did they not know anything that was happening as board members while Fishco was used as the conduit to rape this country from important resources? Those board members must also be held accountable. Sirka Ausiku, the former governor of Ohangwena, what is the man? that makes these chicken sounds, what is his name? Uskongamwa. They must be held accountable. These are important legal requirements, both in terms of the Companies Act, in terms of the Act of Fiscal, that there is a fiduciary responsibility for board members to know what is happening in the companies, and therefore that they must answer to the ACC what they knew, how much they knew, why they were approving certain decisions. They need to know that they must be held accountable. It is not decorations to be made board members. It is not about decorations. It's about executing an important national responsibility in protecting resources of the people of this country for the future generations that must benefit from these resources. So Namibians, the time has come. The young people out there, we love you, we appreciate you, we are fighting for your future. Those that are taking from your heritage, we are working hard to find ways under very difficult circumstances, to find ways to deal with them. Stand with us. Don't be dissuaded or persuaded by fly-by-night political opportunists who do not take patriotic responsibilities seriously. If in today's politics you just go in for the purposes of removing another person on the basis of their ethnicity, your politics is wrong. If in today's political environment your voice is not heard around the question of corruption, yours is not to be in politics. If in today's political space you are not fighting hard for the young people of this country, for jobs, for reducing and eventually removing inequality, for removing poverty, if today you are not prepared and ready to be assassinated, to be jailed for speaking the truth, if you are a political leader and you are not prepared to pay with every cost that you can humanly pay, your duty is to stay home. Stay home with your wife and children. Eat your food, drink your water, stay in your lane. But the responsibility of today's political office bearer, from whichever political party, should be to rush in the protection and defense of the future of our children and our grandchildren. This is what the country requires. We need statesmen and women that are strong in courage and that have conviction of truth to stand up and speak up and be heard. Not just to go around attending funerals, going around attending weddings for the purposes of gaining votes for November, but to stand up where it matters. Young people are suffering. Young people are suffering. And if as leaders, this committee that Kengo put up yesterday, if you are quiet on that committee, that joke, that facade that they put up, we know that you probably also benefited some way or the other from that type of nonsense. On that note, we wish to thank each and every Namibian that stands with us. We are building a political party on the basis of truth. We are building a brand that is geared toward uniting the people of this country to give us a new hope, a new opportunity. We are building a political party that can transform our lives. It's not an easy task. It's not an easy task. We are told in Omaheke that they are starting to recruit exclusively some former defense people on the basis of ethnicity because they are preparing apparently for the eventuality of a civil war. We've got that information and we are telling young people it's our future. Of course, I'm a little bit gray now, but you know what I mean. It's our future. It's our children's future. If as young people we stand tall, we stand united, we organize ourselves, we vote them out of power, and in November they retreat, and in a year or so, we are able to have a strong revolution to remove them from power, we are doing service to ourselves and to our future. The time for an Arab-like spring is nearing the doors of Namibia. This is the types of moments where the Arab Spring type of revolution must come to our shores. We have had enough of this nonsense from Southwest African People's Organization. I thank you on that note, and I'm prepared to take questions.
Okay, how many people have questions? Okay, one more? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the question. I'm Emil Sebet from the NBC. Yesterday, the president said that, before I go to what the president said, you were also once part of the Swabo Party, and you have now directed points to NAS and Mapendukeni. One would assume that you, when you were part, you also knew some of the doings possibly within the party. And then coupled with it, the president yesterday said that opposition parties and certain media houses that are saying that he has not been fighting corruption have selective morality and is doing so for political grandstanding. I've maybe, like you referred to Dr. Itulla, maybe you have mentioned it, but I was not listening. If you could, maybe during your time, why didn't you also speak up? Because you speak so passionate about the subject matter. Was there something holding you back? Were you also probably part of the beneficiaries and you couldn't speak up at that time? And when you speak so passionately about corruption, you just make it general without making an example of this also happened while I was there. And as far as the selective morality and political grandstanding that the president referred to goes, I would like you to comment on that statement also. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Bernardus, the PDM this morning and also a few days ago said they are very ready to form a coalition government. I know you are on record saying that some of the parties or most of the parties do not stand for the same values that LPM stands for, and therefore you cannot find a way of forming a coalition with them. What are your views right now?
On what?
On a coalition. Are you considering going into a coalition with any other opposition political party in the country?
Is there a vacancy?
Sakes?
Yeah, I think I should add to her question on coalition. My name is Adele from the newspaper. You know, in the past, opposition parties have been talking about forming a coalition, but it never happened. And the issue or the bone of contention normally has been and will be that several opposition leaders value their egos before any other thing. They do not want to be led by others, and they do not want to be second to others. But the PDM, Mr. Venani had mentioned it today and has mentioned it in several at several events that if it happens that any opposition like LPM or any other opposition is willing to form that coalition with them, he would be willing to be led by someone else. I just want to put it to you that when that time comes of forming the coalition, will you also be willing to be led by other people? Yeah. My another question is on the. I see very beautiful, colorful vehicles here. Maybe I came a little bit late, but
It belongs to the bank.
it belongs to the bank. Yeah, no. You know, the issue, the reason why I'm asking this question is basically for you to explain where the LTM got the money to examination.
Belongs to the bank.
Belongs to the bank, not through any other donation.
Not from official.
Yeah.
We'll answer you, Saki.
Okay, you must answer, sir.
Yeah.
My third
Bring the
question,
car so that Saki can see specifically.
Exactly, yes. You know, it also, ties into the campaign that SPM ran last year. Maybe to just explain where is SPM getting the money, is this, but this year we know that SPM is getting our money, taxpayers' money.
It's your money.
Yeah, no, this year, but last year we didn't know where the money was
We have
coming
nothing.
from. Oh,
came from my cattle and from...
Yes, you sold all the cattle.
300
I see. Yeah, no, my question is on, the third question is on your last statement. You say that in Namibia it's time for an Arab Spring-like revolution. Can you perhaps just explain, are you willing, because the Arab Spring that we know is that of terrorism and uncivil.
Then you don't know. Then you just know one part of it.
Okay. Can you explain that issue to us, please, so that we can have context?
Maybe just to add, my name is Kevin from Eagle FM. Your position and perspective in connection with the ECN rules that are now putting a cap on donations. What do you think about that? And that cap, is it something that's sustainable as far as you're concerned?
Okay. Emil, good question. I was a member of SWAPO through historic processes and through conviction of the values and the organizational posture of the Southwest African People's Organization. You would know that unlike others, I resigned from Southwest African People's Organization when I couldn't take it anymore. Others were fired from the Southwest African People's Organization. In other words, they were kicked out by the PIC because the PIC didn't want them, didn't need them. I wasn't, Sebeb wasn't, we left. And that must be an important distinction for you to say, some person decides that, look, I can't influence this political party anymore. It can't be my home. Its practices, its values, its conduct of the leaders, its policy in inapplicability and alienation is completely not part of why we joined politics. And hence we now have LPM. When I was there were so many instances that we, because of the rules that you complain inside the house, we're using those approaches to complain inside the house. But complaining inside the house has limits also. Just like everything has limits. Just like lying has its limits. Just like corruption has its limits. Just like fear itself has limits. Fear, which African governments have been keeping the populace hostage. If you say this against this leader or against that person, you'll be arrested. Your bank account will be closed. Your children will be poisoned. You will be killed. There are limits to all of these things. And so as LPM, we have stopped, or as SWAPO, we have stopped the fear part. And we left SWAPO and created this thing out of the common consensus of the people. So you are correct to say we had limits in terms of not going out public. You couldn't, because we are in this political party. Let us disagree inside. And when we are outside, we defend each other. But that too has limits. And clearly that limit came to me. I couldn't bear it anymore. And I spoke out. Now, Emil, you live in this country. I do not know which specific corruption cases you want me to mention and record them one by one at a press conference that is just supposed to be for 1 hour. We have been on record speaking about all sorts of corrupt cases, all sorts of them. But as big as this corruption is, you can never have an exhaustive list, because right now it is even happening probably in a government department where people are planning how to steal. So you can never have an exhaustive list. And so we are focusing on this one because we think this one is able to unbundle a network, because we think this network, this syndicate that is within the establishment needs to be highlighted and broken up so that we'll begin to help address corruption at a bigger scale. Even if this fish rot matter is properly handled, it will not be the end of corruption. It will still go on. As for me, I benefited from positions that Namibians entrusted SWAPO, president. I was appointed as a governor. I was very grateful. I benefited a salary from that. I benefited from S&T allowances. I benefited from medical aid, from pension. There was a time that they were saying I received money from Neckardal Dam. I could have. But I knew that it would not be right to take resources of Namibians and become shiny and wealthy, but immoral and a leader without integrity. Because you know what corruption does is that it redefines you. It recreates you. It's a demonic spirit. It possesses you. It occupies you. And therefore, it predetermines your journey, which inevitably will only be downward to the darkest spaces where the darkest forces live. So it's about, this fight about corruption is very much first a personal choice. Do I not have bread in my house? Yes. Can I get through corrupt means money? Yes. Should I get it? No. What will become of me? So if you are in politics, you have to be conscious of the opportunities that you will be offered, not only through government instances, but from private sector also. That you will have some people that will come and be very lucrative with you and say, look, I can give you this. There was an instance where a white farmer said, help me with a decision to get land at the municipality, I'll give you 50 sheep. Now, I'm a farmer, and I knew that farmer's sheep were of the best. Thank God I had the spiritual guidance that day to say, let me help you with a decision, but I get a salary for the work that I will be doing for you. I didn't take the sheep. There was another minister who eventually is not there here anymore, who was going to another leader wanting me to prepare. Apparently I became a multimillionaire. I can even open my account to you. I'm so indebted. You see my lips, I'm so hungry now. But we have the children's country to protect. The African saying is that we are leasing the present from the unborn child. We are leasing it. When we have to hand over to them, it must be a better place because it belongs to them. So I don't want, nor does she or the leadership and membership of LPM to have our children walk head down because the parents have stolen money. No. Do I think it will probably happen in LPM where people will become greedy and say, oh yes, I do. But that is where the courage of conviction is and say, no, my friend. Here, this is not our party policy. There is the door, get out. And that is what you want political leaders to do. You want them, as we hoped Kenko would do yesterday, to say, I will investigate those that have benefited. And if it means even me, I will resign my job and go home. But it seems that we have not learned any lesson from what corruption did to other African countries. We have not. Look at DRC, how people are suffering. Look at other Congos and many African countries, Nigeria and others, how they are now rebuilding after years of institutionalized corruption. And we are already at past the red robot in respect of corruption. We are past it. Because governments have turned themselves into criminal syndicates in Africa. And they have signed conventions to fight organized crime, but governments themselves are now the key organized syndicates to facilitate and perpetrate crime. It's governments, it's ministers. It's not your ordinary guy that is stealing diamonds here. No, it's ministers. It's at the highest levels. Look at Angola, where Dos Santos' daughter, because her father was there, benefited so much. We are learning zero from the negative consequences of mismanagement of public resources, and we still honor these people as honorables. Mr. Makoya, why don't you make a song about corruption? How it sickeningly destroys young people. You go to Kurenkuru, you go to Rundu, look at the ablution facilities of our children. Corruption steals not just from the present, but it steals from the future. So it's a problem. So Emil, I didn't benefit. I'm too stupid also to benefit from those things. I don't know, for some reason we are who we are. But if you are in politics to become rich, you are in the wrong profession. Here you serve people. And there are difficult days for you as a person financially. There are things as an individual that you want to achieve in your life. But we have to pivot to Saki's question. We have bought 7 GWMs. Maybe you must comment us, and if you don't, it's okay, that had we taken over government, we would probably have bought GWMs. Why? Because a double cab 4x4 GWM diesel is 285,000 versus a Toyota that is 522,000. So we know how to cut costs and to live in an ordinary fashion to do something that needs to be done called serving our people. In regards to the cars, we get funding as a party represented in Parliament. We went to the bank and we said, look, there is this monies that are coming in. Ministry, please write us a letter. We are going to get this funding. This is what we are going to get every year. It has also been reduced, by the way. So please, on the basis of the strength of the little that we get there, can we get some of these cars, please, for meeting people and for doing our things, because we want to build a party. Really, we want to build a party and institution so that our young people can point to something there and say, there is LPM, not to have a briefcase political party. And I tell you, Saki, there were days that we were wondering whether we were going to get the loan approved, because there is so much documentation that you have to do. Because they were telling us that since the Fish Rod saga, the banking system has changed a little bit because people need to verify. We have had to sign document after document, and we've had to check whether the cars are still available and so on. And so we eventually bought these vehicles, which we are grateful for, but it's debt, 1.5 million. It's debt, we have to pay it back and so on. Some people are making an issue of it. Maybe they are right, I don't know, but it's because I believe the other parties that are of our size have perhaps not done the same types of things. And perhaps people find this a bit strange that a political party in 3 months after being brought into Parliament are buying cars. It's debt. And as I said, we are building an organization, an institution that must outlast us and must really be there for young people to benefit from. I know some other political parties do not even have an office. I was in Oshinene this weekend, and there is a political party that is a stronghold there. They just have a corrugated iron thing there. But you have been a party for more than 40 years in the system. We know that some other political parties perhaps do other things with the allocation from the treasury to perhaps they squander resources, I don't know. But there are political parties, Saki, that have existed for 40 years that you do not even see a car with their brand. We have said we are not going to fall in that trap. We are also, as leaders, not going to chow the money. We have a little office that we are renting. We have those few cars that we have. We have to carefully manage because it's fuel and it's other things. We are building a very strong system to get membership fees collected. We are starting. We have the lady there, Ortman. She is collating data from all across the country. We have now over 30,000 membership that we have collated in the computerized systems. We bought second-hand furniture, and we have, you see, even here, it's second-hand, you know, listen, you see, let them see, this is moving, second-hand furniture, second-hand furniture, but at least it's furniture. So we are building a party, Saki. The Arab Spring became violent because of the response of governments. That is what the Arab Spring became violent for. In Egypt, the military first was putting hearts out there that we love the people, and then eventually Mubarak went. But the LCC, or this other guy, Mohammed, or this one that was out from the Islam, what is it? The Brotherhood. He didn't manage this thing well. He was out and Al-Sisi came in. So when we speak of an Arab type of revolution, essentially it's issue-based. The Arab Spring was about unemployment, about dictatorship, about corruption, about inequality. That's how it actually started with this young man that set himself on fire because of lack of opportunity. So it was issue-based. That's the first reason why I'm speaking of an Arab Spring. It was issue-based. It was driven by young people. It was about life and livelihood. That is what it was about. Then the demonstrations grew peacefully. It was peaceful. But the military governments began to spoil it for young people in order to taint, exactly as you alluded to, the Arab revolution of young people as a terrorist organization. Of course, they were also infiltrated and so on. But in this country, we are too tamed. We are too decent. We are too domesticated. We prophesy respect for elders as if that's the first commandment above all other commandments. We disregard our future and compromise our future because elders need to call us respectful children. Those days are not able to serve us well. Future has to be respected by the present generations, and the preceding generation has to recognize that the current generations are the ones that will answer to the future generations. The current ones in power with Southwest African People's Organization, they will be dead soon. It will be up to Saki and up to Jemima and up to Emil and Mr. Makoya and Joy and Cecil here and Suhus there. It will be up to us to look those children in the eyes and answer them questions about what Geingob did, about what whoever did. But those actions are not our actions. So if the current crop of those that are in the executive destroy the country, it will be up to us to rebuild something that we have not destroyed. But if we keep quiet today out of respect, tate kulu, me kulu, kuku, auma, aupa, we are playing. Because already the children that we are raising are asking us questions. My 13-year-old daughter, her son, they are asking us questions. Yesterday there was a young boy who saw a man, he's 7 years old, the child, who saw a man wearing Swapo clothes. The child in the shop just said, down Swapo, down. Nobody asked him. 7-year-old child. Down Swapo, down. Just like that. So we must start to take charge of our country. I don't mean to belittle other politicians. I respect them. We applaud the fact that they are applying to be registered with ECN. Often I see so many politicians just wanting the chair. Just wanting the chair. I did not join politics to sit on the chair as I'm doing now. I must be on my feet, serving people, water problems, housing problems, land problems, Saki. And whatever your ethnic group, doesn't matter for us. We are humans, we are same Africans. We are children of the same mother, of the same father. We have different tongues. But if you carefully look at who we are Africans, all of us. Some are a bit light-skinned, some are a bit dark-skinned, some are pointed noses, some are like me, the nose is not very pointed, but we are the same people, same DNA. And when politicians love their people, they also fall in love with truth and honesty. It is the politician that loves himself that engages in corruption. It is the politician that loves only his own view, his own voice, that refuses to listen to the voices and the cries of other people. So we need a different type of revolution. And you can see how the military is even getting nearer and nearer to parliament. The other day, Venani and I were standing there and we were talking about this thing. There were so many army people there deployed. So come September, they probably want to beat us there. So Namibians must be prepared. When September comes, it will be fireworks. SWAPO will end up saying they need space to breathe. They will say it because it will be hot on the issues. We will be launching our motion on urban land. We want our young people to get urban land free of charge. They are also stealing free of charge and getting rich free of charge. They are shining free of charge and they are lying free of charge. So we'll be speaking the truth free of charge. We are going to speak the truth with hot air, and we are going to speak the truth as a collective. We are going to have possibly a motion on Lubango, on land, expropriation of foreign-owned land. We are going to have a motion on urban land. It will come. It will come as we go into the elections so that Namibians can see we are serious. We were just checking if SWAPO is able to survive in the gymnastics of politics. We saw they can't breathe. They can't breathe. The lungs have become very old and fat because of the years of corruption. They can't breathe. They can't breathe. They have short breath, they have short size, they have eye problems, they have leg problems, they have all sorts of problems of age, of too much eating and so on. So we will be exercising during the 62 days so that we know where to punch them. We have seen which ones fall asleep. They are divided on the issue. We have also seen that we have provoked Royal Twitoto to get to a point of consciousness. They are splitting up internally. There are rafts that are big. Theirs is a situation that they cannot deal with the oncoming Victoria Falls water. It's too powerful. They are unable to come. There was a former mayor of Luderitz that came. She said, she hit me here. She said, my son, we are going to get a heart attack. Please, man. I said, Cuckoo, stay home. Stay home. It's not your place. So it will be tough. I know Yvonne Donsas is trying to do things there. I'm told by people that they are running around trying to get us out of parliament. Whether we're in or out of parliament is immaterial. The point here is we are citizens, and that, as Obama, I agree with him. Obama said the most important position you can ever have is citizenship. That's all. Whether they try to remove Swarbe from parliament and Saipeb, I will go to Keetman, Saipeb goes to Korigas, and we will work very hard as citizens to change things. It's not position. Leadership is not position. It's action. That is what it is.
Yes.
On this thing of coalition, you see, it will be important for Venani, if he is serious about coalition, not to talk in the air about it. He must engage. I think I agree with you journalists in your assessment that maybe everybody wants to be a leader. They want to be the head of a mouse and not of the lion, or the head of a mouse instead of being the tail of a lion. I mean, you can see which one is more powerful. The tail of a lion can be more powerful than the head of a mouse. The mouse is a small thing. But the difficulty, Saki, Jemima, Yabekas, that we have seen is a significant number of our political parties do not engage and spend time in ideological orientation. Because your ideological orientation determines your perception of society, the lens through which you view society. That's why you find some political parties are very loose in parliament about their views on issues. Some of them do research, but you just don't know, is this party now new liberal or are they center-right? Because tomorrow they will support something that is completely against what you think they are. We are a leftist organization. We're a leftist organization that has a particular approach to politics and to analysis that we apply. And if you can't agree on the ideological posture, which therefore influences your policy approach to the economy, to socio-economic development, you can't just therefore go and have coalition. What will be your nexus be? Is it that your common enemy is SWAPO and that's all? Is that all? Because the ultimate point is not just the removal of SWAPO for us in our analysis. The ultimate point is to transform society fundamentally.
Yes.
To change the base, and therefore to have a different type of superstructure that will change the base.
Yes.
Many political parties, even their leaders, are not able to read and therefore are not politically literate. They are there in parliament, but they are not. Some of them are also very absent. So the long and short of it is that if Vanaani wants a coalition, first there must be a vacancy. I don't see the vacancy. SWAPO resigned. So that's important. Fine. Even if there is no vacancy, what is it that the coalition will be about? What will the coalition be about? Will the principles and the issues be about fundamental transformation of society, or will it be to replace SWAPO and to continue with the policies of SWAPO? That's the problem. Because some of the political parties only promise to do things faster, much more efficient than SWAPO. But SWAPO's policies are neoliberal. They are not centered on the individual, on the person. They are not. They are not. Thirdly, if he wants coalition, then the talks must therefore be honest and sincere. So that we decide whether we are going to close all other political parties and have an organic one political party, or whether this coalition will be on the basis of collaboration on the issues. Right now, there is some sense of togetherness. But we are told that after, as opposition, we said these committees are not working well, some other parties went and joined SWAPO in setting up the parliamentary committees, and it was only PDM and LPM left now to possibly go to court. So, perhaps some other political parties see themselves as very small to affect any change, to influence anything. They see themselves like that. And it's dangerous to have a permanent type of coalition with political parties that don't believe in themselves. Because if a party doesn't believe that it can change and influence policies, then that party can also not change society. Now you can't be in a coalition with political parties that believe they must be subservient to SWAPO. There is another political party that had its leader becoming a deputy minister. Goodness. So whose policies and whose manifesto are you going to implement? You are leader of a party. President of a party. You go in, you become deputy minister. All you talk about is COVID now. COVID. That's all you talk about. You have a manifesto that says you are going to talk about many. Now you just talk about COVID. You are leader of a party. So you want to become a caravan on SWAPO's corrupt wagon. This is the contradiction and the complexity of coalitions sometimes. Saki, this is the challenge. You must also ask Vanaani, since he talks about coalitions, have they attempted it before? Why did it not work? Have they attempted it before? Why did it not work?
They attempted it before.
And what happened?
Top dog mentality failed it.
By who?
Some people were not willing to say who was who wanted to be.
Ask the very person who tells you that. Ask Venani, from whom was the top dog mentality? Let him answer it. Let him answer the top dog mentality. Because while I love this brand, in the interest of Namibia, we should be able to be strong enough to say we can have coalition. But I cannot have coalition with people who are not of sound mind as LPM. We can't have people who are not of sound mind intellectually and otherwise. I'm not saying Venani. Venani is brilliant. He's a bright man. If he's committed, I'm committed. We are committed. But talking about issues of this sort in the street already tells me it's more for the show. It's more for the show. If they want genuine coalition, let's sit and talk. Let's agree on the principles. And let's talk on working together systematically, and perhaps it can metastasize into an organic political party. But we can already start. We don't need to push it, since it already failed a number of times. And I know who the person was that created the failure. I know very well the dates, the venues they met, what happened, who was sending who to say, however, in this coalition talks, it must only be one person that must be the president of the coalition. We know what happened. So coalition, everyone talks about it. It seems to be the fashionable thing. We are more worried about raising the issues consistently. And PDM really has, from time to time, shown that they are committed to at least work with LPM in some instances. Of course, you must also recognize there is also competition. We are focusing on SWAPO. Some people are focusing on LPM. That's also the problem. They are focusing on, if we have a meeting at house number 12, some people have a meeting at house number 13. They never planned to go there, but they see us at house number 12. They also decide to come to house number 13. That's also the problem that they have. You plan to go to house number 300. Now you see us at 12. You turn around and say, they are there. Let us go to house number 13. As it happened this weekend also. You know, sometimes people even compete for funerals. You know, I must attend this funeral because someone is going to attend this funeral. That's the silly nature of politics and so on. Sometimes. So we are ready for discussions, but it must be coalitions on issues, not on personalities and on opportunistic limelight seeking of others. Who had a question still? I think we answered all of them.
No, he has a question.
Who? Oh.
Thank you so much. My name is Joseph Ilonga from
One Africa.
Yes. I actually have a question with regards to the recent.
Yes, sir. Joseph, we are with you.
No, I actually have a question with regards to the recent statements of the founding father and everything. No.
It's really in the
it's
past.
It's not actually linked to that, but it's a historical thing, just education, right?
Yeah.
So SWAPO has always sold the liberation struggle narrative as one where they want the freedom to gain or get back the entire nation, which was under the South African government. However, Walvis Bay was not part of Namibia until 1994. So do you think that SWAPO's liberation struggle narrative was kind of exaggerated?
Yeah.
And with Walvis Bay being the epicenter of the fish rot scandal, has the party kind of sold out, the people of Walvis Bay, especially after, they just joined Namibia like in 1994?
Jemima, don't go. I want to talk to you, please, unless you have another commitment. We want to protect you against Utoni. Yes, Joseph. The narrative of SWAPO, that they freed this country, is the biggest joke. Cuban soldiers were the ones at Cuito Cuanavale because they quote that event as the turning point. Cuito Cuanavale is commanded by Fidel Castro from Havana, was the epicenter that transformed and facilitated the independence of Namibia. Some of these guys that today proclaim to be big plan fighters, you know how they were fighting? Some of them were putting their guns here. As they are running, they were shooting anything from here, from behind. They were not, some of these guys were not fighting as Mie Gaumap, Commander Mie Gaumap was a strong commander, and some others, you know. One would want to know one day and honor Peter Nanyemba. That man, Peter Nanyemba, is a legend that has his history not yet written. I would like to write something about Peter Nanyemba. Why? Because he unified under his command all ethnic groups. Peter Nanyemba. He died in a particular way. But that SWAPO claims to have liberated this country is the oldest rubbish. They played a part in the greater scheme of things with international solidarity. And because they were supported by Namibians, they were able to be the organized force to free the country. But Justus Darwe played a role. Herero King's Council, Chiefs Council played a role. They don't recognize these groups of individuals and institutions that played a role. But it's not about the issue of Wolfish Bay. It's about these guys just being corrupt and never actually ready to lead. SWAPO was never ready to lead, just like the African National Congress was never ready to lead. And we now have these leaders who are demonstrating so powerfully how they were unready to lead, because to lead, your soul and your mind and your spirit must be attuned to the people's aspirations. And if you are genuinely a leader, when you recognize that your senses are no more part to this type of aspiration of the people, you go peacefully and stay home. Corruption is an element of not ready to lead. If you are corrupt, you are not ready to lead. You are not ready to lead. If a man gets a child and is an absentee father, he was never ready to become a father, because you deny that child your love. Same, if a political party goes in government and is an abusive father, like they are now, because that's corruption. It's abuse of state resources, abuse of people's trust, abuse of the institutions of state, abuse of the authority given to you. You were never ready to lead. So they were never ready to lead this country and transform society. That I can tell you. It's not even about betrayal. They just were not ready to lead. They shouldn't have been the ones leading. Kgalema Motlanthe said to us when we visited him that maybe after South Africa became democratized, they should have sat down and said, ANC, this was our mission. We have achieved it. Let some other people take this forward. Let us now disband the ANC and start with a new setup, a new organic format. That's what Kgalema Motlanthe said. Maybe that should have been the case, because it is a very poor memory that only thinks and reflects of the past. Poor memory. This is SWAPO, the poor memory party. They can't take us any further. The writing is on the wall. SWAPO's days are counted. It's numbered. The Fish Road is not a betrayal of Wolfish Bay. It's a betrayal of all. Why? Because they were never ready to lead. You look at Botswana and you see, if you compare with us, between Southwest Africa People's Organization and ANC and MPLA, who was more ready to lead? Who loved their people more? Who loved their people more? You will see Botswana will be a proper example. Botswana, not even Zimbabwe's Mugabe. Botswana and the leadership, the people and the leaders were solid. That is why today that country is still moving forward as a bloc, even if they have corruption and so on, as a bloc, still being an example of a many number of things that we want so dearly. So SWAPO was never ready to lead. That's why it's current generation, the ones that are my age. You look at them, some are ministers. You know, out of sympathy for them sometimes, because they used to be my good friends, sometimes I feel so bad for them. You know, when people like Lucia Ipumbu speak, I don't know how to help them, because they are struggling. It's so sad, Lucia Ipumbu. They are struggling to speak, to be a substantive minister. I think, you know, because they don't grow. SWAPO doesn't invest in growth. They say we are SWAPO products, not necessarily. Some of us are products of the Roman Catholic Church, the Namibia National Students Organization, and then we groomed ourselves by speaking to elders and so on and so forth. SWAPO was just a conduit in and out, because it flushed us out. It was too dirty in the pipe, the SWAPO pipe, very dirty. The stink was too much. That's why it's a party of the rot. We had to get out there. When we got out, the growth that we experienced was amazing. They came to me, Kapofi in particular. He said, man, we regret having lost you. The way you have grown, the type of leader you are now. Hi, you are strong. I said, too late, Kapofi. Too late for tears. You were the one saying I was playing monkey tricks when Kenkop was misbehaving with me. So, be careful of monkey tricks. It becomes a man at the end of the day. So SWAPO is not ready to lead, never was ready to lead, never will be ready to lead. Imagine, imagine a person like, now let me not mention names, but there was this one that went to block LPM from being registered and he failed. Imagine that kind of guy becoming a minister of, say, fisheries. Oh my God. Huh? Or this guy Mareka that was pointing at me, who you can see he doesn't even know how Windhoek looks like. how I'm just playing a little bit. How do you think that the current crop, together with the previous ones, will ever be able to lead society? It's game over with SWAPO. If in Afrikaans I have to say it, die skool is uit vir SWAPO. Dis huis toe gaan tyd. Die skool is uit. School is uit. Young people, thank you very much. Keep strong, keep together. Where you are, remain united and give us signals when you pick up things. Have a nice day.